Good evening, everybody. It's now 6:30, so we shall commence proceedings for the evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We have a special guest tonight, which is Chief Inspector Hayley O'Grady joining us. Let's move on with the first thing we'll do is the housekeeping. Moving on to the housekeeping again. Fire evacuation procedures. So there's no fire alarm scheduled for this evening, and therefore if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The public exit is located at the rear of this room. Exit through reception unless otherwise instructed and meet in the War Memorial car park. This meeting is being webcast live on the internet and will be available to view on YouTube after the meeting. Please can I remind members and officers that in order to be heard clearly within the room by those present and our guests as well, on the webcast, you must speak directly into your microphone. Please don't move them around because they're all set up very specifically. And also please remember to switch off your phones or put them to silent. Thank you very much. So first thing we'll do is apologies. So we've had an apology from Councillor Conquest and Councillor Lee. Are there any other apologies for absence or substitutions? Okay, are there any declarations of interest? Right, okay, we have the minutes of the meeting held on 17th September is item 3. Are the committee agreed that the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th September 2025 are an accurate record? Agreed, thank you. So I'll move that the minutes of the meeting be signed as a correct record. Apparently we've run out of minute paper, so I will not be signing tonight, but I will sign them as soon as Ellie has had a chance to find a ream of posh paper.
Are we that poor?
Probably all the upheaval that's gone on. Okay, then moving on to item 4, you're going to have to put up with my voice for a little bit longer. Because it's the Crime and Disorder Joint Scrutiny Committee update, and we're going to receive feedback from members on the recent Crime and Disorder Joint Scrutiny Committee, and I'm going to introduce and update the committee on it. And so we held the meeting back in June. It's only held once a year. It's a statutory meeting, and we do have obviously people from internally in the council plus partners, and it's also across with Rushmore and and Hart. Thank you, Rushmore, Hart, and us. So it's quite a lot of people coming together. Because it only happens once a year, I took on the chair role. The meeting actually didn't. What started off, we had a bit of an issue to start with where I think we were worried that we didn't have enough people there. I think it was. I can't remember what the issues were. I think it was lack of counsellors, wasn't it? Was it to start with? Yeah. So, and also that one of the things actually that we did talk about quite a bit, and I know that was going to. I think somebody else was going to mention this tonight, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Was around the fact that some of the partners weren't there, which also meant that it didn't really do the meeting justice. So I went through the report as written, and we came up with quite a few thoughts around the meeting. So you can see that on page 11. I won't read through them all, but there are a few suggestions in there as well. So I'm sure you've had a chance to have a look through that one. I think that was the sort of the main thing. It got into a little bit of talking about quite specifics as well, and then I think there was a little bit of lack of clarity. And I've since had a look at the Constitution about exactly what the meeting should be focusing on. So my personal perspective of the meeting, it's a very important thing that meeting gets together, in spite of just being a statutory thing. If it feels like a box tick, but the point of what it's doing, which is another reason that I raise this as a theme for this evening's meeting around community safety. But I think we need to perhaps look at ways that we can definitely improve on that. And I think that if people want to sort of talk about that as well tonight, I think that would be useful. So that's really that's really it. It wasn't a long one. You can read, you'll have read it, so I'm not going to read it all out. And it is just to note the item, but we've also put feedback from members on it. So was anybody else there, or has anybody got any feedback on the report? Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Chair. I believe that you knew this was coming because obviously you've had a similar conversation. But I had a call from Councillor Paul Basham, who read through this and had planned to come to speak and unfortunately couldn't make it. And he asked me to raise, and I have to say I agree as well, in the point on, where are we? Page 11, one of the things that we noted at that meeting was the disappointment regarding a lack of attendance from some statutory and voluntary partners at the meeting. And given that the crime and disorder meeting is a statutory commitment, he asked, could we please note those partners that fail to attend in the minutes going forward, so that can be seen and there's a little more accountability involved.
Councillor Kine.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, but I would just make the point that, that the members who should have attended or were expected to attend and weren't there were not members of this council.
Sorry, if I may, Chair, specifically, I think Councillor Basham and I, in turn, are referring not necessarily to the councillors from other authorities that didn't attend that meeting, although I think that is relevant as well, but to the partners, the statutory partners that don't attend the ongoing meetings of the partnership, and hence make it difficult sometimes to do the work.
Anybody got anything else they would like to add? If not, I will move to ask the committee to note the item. Noted, thank you. Right, that was nice and quick, wasn't it? So now we're going to move on to our Safer Communities team, service update and presentation. Our officer who's going to present is Daniel. He's pulled a presentation together for us. So he would like, first of all, Councillor Mackay will introduce the item, and then Dan and Debbie are going to go through the presentation together, and then we can ask questions after the presentation has been gone through.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to join you this evening and look forward to the following debate. As always, I'm also here to listen. My thanks go to Chief Inspector Hayley O'Grady of Hampshire Police for her presence and part in the presentation, and to Dan White and Debbie Mason from the Safer Communities team, who will be presenting shortly. So the background is the Safer North Hampshire Community Safety Partnership, which will be covered a bit in the presentation, is subject to annual scrutiny, as the Chair has explained, by an Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And this has led to your request for a better understanding of how council services contribute to our community safety priorities. There can be very few things that are more important than building communities where residents are not only safe, but most importantly, feel safe. So our Safer Communities team play a vital role. Our community safety patrol officers are a visible presence in our communities, protecting and enhancing public spaces, providing a high quality and responsive service that help to create a place to be proud of, and their work is valued by the police and residents. So the work of the whole team, out there and behind the scenes, directly supports the Council's safe and secure strategic objective. So reducing antisocial behaviour, supporting effective policing and partnership working, and ensuring residents, businesses and visitors feel safe. So embedded across all aspects of our community safety work is a collaborative approach at the strategic and operational level. We work closely with statutory partners, the voluntary and community sector, and our residents. No single agency could tackle these changes alone. Today's presentation will provide an overview of recent developments within the Safer Communities team, highlight key achievements, and demonstrate how we continue to work in partnership to address local issues effectively. I think I had time to hand over to Dan for some detail. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mackay, and thank you to the committee for having us to attend this evening's meeting and present a bit of an overview around some of the work of the team and some of the achievements over recent months. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the presentation. I'm going to run through a few of the slides, and then Debbie and Hayley have kindly offered to contribute to it to save you from the boredom of my voice for the whole evening. So there's a bit of variation around what we're doing as well, and then there'll be plenty of opportunity for some of them follow-up questions. As you can see, I've included around, and I'll start the presentation with a focus on the work of our council services response to community safety, particularly around what our community safety team are doing, our community safety patrol officers, and also our work in partnership. I'm going to be talking about the recent developments which we've had in the team. It's been quite an exciting period of time over the last year, providing insight into how the team operates at a strategic, tactical and operational level, and how we do that alongside our partners. We're going to share some case studies around the impact of the team's proactive and responsive work, a bit of an update on crime and antisocial behaviour, outline some of the policing priorities and the role of councillors and community leaders in supporting community safety and its challenges, as well as demonstrating and highlighting the importance of that partnership work in quite a complex environment sometimes as well. I will add that it's obviously quite a complex and broad area of work, so I've tried to consolidate as much as possible, but appreciate I'm not going to cover everything which we do this evening. Okay, so I'm going to talk about our recent team developments. It's been a really quite a busy and exciting year for the Safe Communities team. With some significant progress made to strengthen how we respond to the current challenges and also prepare for future demand as well. So recently, back in the earlier part of the year, we undertook a review of our operations internally, particularly focusing on pressures within the community safety team and also the CSPO shift structure. So following a consultation period, a revised structure was implemented and that became fully operational in July of this year. So this included a return to 2 operational CSPO shifts, now covering 7 days a week, with amended hours as well and best response to community safety issues. And that's improving our visibility and responsiveness across the borough. We've also enhanced the team capacity within existing budgets by restructuring management and developing and recruiting to key roles. So that includes the CSPOs, the shift supervisors, a team leader, and new posts such as the Community Safety Projects and Contracts Officer, as well as a further half post for a Community Safety Officer. These changes support the Council's priorities and ensure we continue to deliver high quality services, in particular as part of our work to be a leading council. I think it's worth noting that our proactive approach, including patrols, casework, problem profiling, partnership working, and our delivery of ASB campaigns sets us apart from many other areas within Hampshire and also further afield, and that's a real positive. Obviously, we share many similarities with our colleagues at Hart and Rushmore, one being that we have a shared community safety partnership across the area, and our structure and existing partnership working positions us well in light of LGR proposals. Okay, so I'll focus a little bit on our community safety patrol officers. We have a team of 12 community safety patrol officers. That includes 11 CSPOs and 1 team leader. They operate across 2 shifts, each led by a shift supervisor. Their core role is to reduce antisocial behaviour, provide reassurance, support community safety, and improve residents' quality of life and feeling of safety. Our CSPOs carry out highly visible uniform patrols, deterring antisocial behaviour, crime and disorder, while offering reassurance to the public. They work closely with residents, businesses, housing associations, the police and other partners to tackle issues collaboratively. Having localised knowledge and working closely with the local community is a key part of us addressing community safety issues. So the team's approach is robust and proactive. They address environmental crimes like dog fouling, littering and fly tipping. And that can also include issuing fixed penalty notices where appropriate to do so, and other relevant legal casework in regards to that. There's also various different targeted campaigns which the team run, which I'll talk about a bit later during the presentation. In terms of how we prioritise our CSPO's patrols across the borough, we cover the whole borough, obviously with a team of 12, we have to be smart and take a data-led approach to how we manage that, prioritising them areas most affected by antisocial behaviour for them patrols. So our patrols are identified through our analytical data. So we have a problem-solving focus group, and we look at the actual data supporting where antisocial behaviour is having most impact. Direct community feedback, so that can include our work with you as community leaders and councillors. The intelligence actually gathered throughout them patrols as well, on the ground, where we know problems are occurring and what we're seeing out and about and how we best respond to that, as well as our partnership input and police-led hotspot areas as well. So they are coordinated at a constabulary level. The team also run various antisocial behaviour campaigns, and that helps to guide some of that patrol deployment as well when we are during a campaign period. So we can focus on particular areas of attention, such as with our a recent dog fouling campaign. Again, I'll talk about that a bit later, but covering the kind of parks and open spaces and key areas where dog fouling is known to be an issue. In addition to that, the CSPOs also support many other council service areas with their work. And really, in summary, the team are a visible, responsive and collaborative presence, working to make our community safer and more resilient. Okay, so you should see now there's an updated team map as well, which outlines the coverage across the borough. And each officer, you can see them there, is assigned a dedicated point of contact area. So we determine that by ward boundaries, population data, and antisocial behaviour trends as well, with each officer having two ward areas which they cover. So during the kind of how we work and operate during the daytime, so CSPOs will be focusing on high-vis patrols, community engagement, tackling some of them environmental issues within our area. And in the evenings, much of the work is shifted towards kind of our ASB hotspots, so where we tend to get some of that rowdy and inconsiderate type behaviour. We might need to have a more hotspot focused drive to where the team are going. So CSPOs are not confined solely to their point of contact areas, but that is mainly for that point of continuity for the local communities, for businesses, for schools, for residents, for councillors, that actually they know that point of contact which they can speak to and have a professional relationship with. This approach both enhances communication and helps to build trust within local areas, and also we rely on officers then being able to have that localised knowledge and strong understanding of local issues and dynamics. And I'm sure, as you're already aware, the borough can see quite significant differences in terms of some of the needs and the demographics. So it's important that we can be responsive to that. The team, as I mentioned, the team operates on two shifts which rotate, and that covers 7 days a week, Monday to Sunday. Typically that's from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. But then the hours are extended beyond that over the weekend, Fridays and Saturdays, where the team work later. But shift times are also adaptable to meet community safety needs. So the team will, if there is an issue earlier in the morning, they will often change their shifts. If it's something happening a bit later, they'll adapt their shift to respond accordingly as well. Hopefully the model which we work to balances that local accountability, some flexibility, and ensuring that we have visible, knowledgeable and responsive CSPOs within local communities. Okay, I've got. I'm not going to read out all of what's on there because there's quite a lot of information. But these are just some comments which we've received from local residents or businesses in following community safety issues being dealt with. So there's a few sample of some of the positive responses which have come back. So following being aware of community safety issues, we will ask. I think it's really important for us to actually understand, has the approach which the team have taken worked? Is that actually reducing the antisocial behaviour which they're experiencing, and is this having an impact on helping to make people feel safer? Since in the last 5 years, over 300 people have been surveyed, 92% of them reporting that they feel safer as a result of the team's actions, which is obviously quite positive. That highlights the importance and the positive impact of them visible patrols and community engagement and building public confidence and addressing ASB effectively. I'll mention a couple of examples to go alongside that. And these examples are ones which there's been work taking place with the police. So one is actually in relation to some reactive work. It was quite a recent example. Unfortunately, a robbery, it's in relation to a robbery which occurred within our area. Actually took place at quite an unusual time in the morning, nearby to a local school. Obviously, that's quite unusual. That caused some concern amongst parents and residents within that area, particularly those using them school routes. So the incident was, we attend the police have a daily management meeting which they coordinate, and as a council we have involvement in that and attend that on a daily basis. So as a result of that, obviously one of the things, the outcomes from that was that there's very likely to be some community concern around that and the community needing some reassurance. So we're able to offer some additional patrols to support the police to help to make people feel safer, and also to gather intelligence about any potential for any reoccurring events. Whilst that took place, and that over several days, the team actually amended their shifts very quickly. Were able to come in earlier mornings and provide some patrols. That was really to reassure the public and deter them future incidents. That was really well received by members of the public and the school and parents, and actually some feedback was actually provided to the team around how their approach and their presence have made people feel safer. So obviously it's something which, as a council and the CSPO team, they're not going to be there investigating robberies, but the engagement and visibility played that key role in restoring some sense of safety and reassurance within the local community. Another example on that is around some proactive work as well, and I think this just highlights some of the about having localized knowledge whilst working with our partners, and having that kind of community knowledge about who's there in communities, who's there causing problems, and understanding when there might need to be additional support. And this one was around some referrals which have been made to the police. So during some routine patrols which the CSPOs were carrying out, there was several individuals which were identified which were known to be of interest to the police priority crime team. So the CSPOs noted that, and were able to, through the relationships which we've got, we're able to speak directly to the priority crime team at the police. And actually they were very responsive, came out, conducted some searches. There was some really positive intelligence which was gathered from that, and that also included the arrest of an individual on supplying Class A drugs as well. So a really good spot from the team. There was also, actually on the same weekend as that, an individual which was known to be wanted by the police, and this is something which would ordinarily be discussed at the police's daily management meetings. That was in connection with a GBH, grievous bodily harm offence. That was known to the team. They were able to report that to the police, and the individual was subsequently arrested by the police, which was obviously a great result that bad person off the streets. So I think these just highlight some of the value of operational collaboration between the CSPOs and our policing colleagues, enabling that kind of effective response to crime and enhancing community safety as well. I think really it demonstrates that the local level knowledge from the CSPO team, which helps to aid some of them community safety outcomes. Moving on from some of them more serious incidents to something which is potentially affecting, less impactful overall, but has affects more kind of residents and has an impact, and that is dog fouling. Earlier this year, we had increased reports made to the council in relation to dog fouling, including from councillors, and there were several key areas which were highlighted as a result of that. So we had a look at that. Well, actually, we can play a part in addressing some of these concerns, and ran a specific dog fouling campaign under the Keep Basingstoke and Dean Clean banner. So the campaign period ran for 4 weeks in the spring. So that ran from 31st of March to 27th of April. The key aims of the campaign were to provide some targeted patrols with high-vis foot patrols deployed in dog fouling hotspots across the borough. It was around community awareness and education. So it was we have a borough-wide public space protection order, and this was to remind people that dog fouling is unacceptable, and also that it's reportable as well, and that as well as not picking up after your pet, after your dog, that if people aren't carrying sufficient means to pick up after their dog as well, they can also receive a fixed penalty notice. So a lot of that education work was carried out. And then following that, so that was the sort of first 2 weeks of the campaign. Following that, an enforcement approach was taken. So a robust approach taken after some of that kind of education work had been done, was around speaking to people, doing some spot checks on people to make sure that they were carrying suitable means. This is something which is affecting a large number of residents. It's important that we can respond to that effectively. The campaign encouraged responsible ownership and promoted, as well as the dog fouling element, promoted microchipping, ID tags, and preventing dogs from straying as well. And that was in close collaboration with our dog warden. And it was also around empowering residents as well and encouraging actually people can report this, and then we will investigate and look into things. So it just shows some key kind of outputs from the campaign as well. So 314 targeted CSPO patrols were made across the borough. 244 dog walkers were engaged with, and the awareness of the campaign raised during the CSPO's patrols. 259 dog poo bag checks which were carried out. There was actually a really, really high compliance rate with that, which you'll be pleased to know, which is excellent. So either people were listening to the CSPOs in the first couple of weeks, and all the messaging which went out, or people were generally very well behaved. So that's a positive from that. There was 361 letters which were delivered, so in local areas, so around kind of parks and open spaces where people are more likely to see and be able to report things. There was actually 2 fixed penalty notices which were issued during the campaign period, and then following that we continued the work, and a further 3 have been issued in the months following. It's quite a difficult, actually seeing someone in the act of not picking up their dog is actually quite difficult, particularly when the CSPO is wearing high-vis uniform, and people often look around and see, even if they're carrying bags, and may not want to pick up. Fortunately, most people are very responsible, which is obviously great to see, and hopefully the campaign helped to highlight that as well. Some really positive community engagement work and some awareness raising through our social media channels as well. There was 15 dedicated posts on our council social media. That included 541 different engagements, and amazingly, I was quite surprised with this figure, just under 70,000 people reached via the social media posts, which was really positive. Okay, I'll move on from CSPOs and talk about the main other part of our team, which is our community safety team, which is led by Debbie, our community safety team leader. So the team is a small but highly skilled unit that's made up of 1.5 community safety officer roles, a projects and contracts officer, and a part-time data analyst, as well as Debbie, our team leader. The team coordinate the Safer North Hampshire Community Safety Partnership, working closely with our colleagues in Hart and Rushmore areas, which helps enable us to deliver a joined-up approach to community safety across the region. A key focus for the team is to support a reduction of ASB and social behaviour, and support a borough where everyone feels safe. So the team manages antisocial behaviour cases from start to finish. So that can use both informal and formal interventions, and we can use a range of tools and powers to support with that. The team also provide guidance and advice to residents, to councillors, to schools, to businesses and community groups on a daily basis. As well as that, we oversee complex statutory reviews as well. So that includes domestic homicide reviews and ASB case reviews. And really that's around ensuring that victims' voices are heard and lessons learned from across agencies. The team's work is highly partnership driven. And you probably noticed this throughout a theme of the presentation, but it feeds into everything which we do. So we collaborate on a daily basis with the police, with housing associations, and other local services to tackle antisocial behaviour and community safety concerns. The team also support various different community groups and events. That includes Neighbourhood Watch. Actually, we've got a team member at the Neighbourhood Watch committee going on at this moment in time. The Domestic Abuse Forum, and also the Hate Crime Working Group as well. There's also an important part of the work which we do is around providing detailed crime and antisocial behaviour analysis, which helps us to inform our strategic assessments as a partnership, and also some localised level problem profiles which aids our decision making in relation to antisocial behaviour issues. So that can include things like public space protection orders. The team also oversee our approach to public space surveillance, so CCTV, and various different contract management in that area. There's various different projects and grant funding streams which might exist as well, such as Safer Streets, which there's been some delivery on over the last few years. And some of the day-to-day work might include responding to community safety queries from the public and partners, managing ASB cases, coordinating that partnership problem-solving approach, and advising and designing of planning to reduce future crime or antisocial behaviour risks, some of our management of contracts, and supporting the delivery of council priorities and community safety strategies. There's always, with the work of the team, an evidence-led and problem-solving approach which is taken. So we often use what's known as the SARA model to guide our work. And we use a wide range of tools within our toolkit relevant to community safety as well. So that can be anything from low-level warnings to more formal actions like community protection notices, potentially injunctions or public space protection orders. But in summary of the team, they play a vital role in helping to keep communities safe, informed and supported, whilst ensuring as well that as a council we can meet some of our statutory duties in that community safety world. Right, save you from my voice, I'm going to hand over to Debbie, who's going to talk about a couple of case studies in relation to antisocial behaviour case management.
Thanks, Dan. So as you've already heard, our work for both parts of the team is extremely complicated but also very rewarding from what we do. Our main focus is on antisocial behaviour case management, which can take a variety of forms. And sometimes it's just general advice from members of the public: what can I do with this, where can I report that, I just want to ask a question, to the much more complicated and longer term case coordination, which we need partners to get involved with to help us with that. We also attend many partnership meetings, so Dan's already mentioned some of the ones that we coordinate and enable, but we also support things like the Early Help Hub, which is run by Children's Services, child protection meetings, adult safeguarding meetings, where we use our expertise around our use of tools and powers and what works to give help to other partners to resolve wider issues, but also with the heart of that is supporting vulnerable people who might be experienced or involved in antisocial behaviour. So often we'll get maybe we'll get something from a resident who will say, oh, my neighbour's got mental health issues, or oh, they're calling in lots of times because they've got a mental health issue. Well, actually, that doesn't mean to say that that individual shouldn't be listened to, that they might still be experiencing antisocial behaviour. So we will respond to everybody, we'll treat everybody in the same way, and we'll get to the bottom of what their issue is and then give support where it's needed. And then if we need to do safeguarding, or if we need to refer on to other areas, we'll do that as well. So just in terms of a couple of case studies, one of our issues that we deal with often is, well, not often actually, but we do get occasionally groups of young people who are sometimes bored, sometimes causing a bit of nuisance in an area, and we have to remember that our area covers the rural and the town. So this one is in relation to a group of young people that were causing an issue in one of our rural areas, right on the side of the patch. So they're very kind of isolated from lots of other areas, and it's quite difficult for them to get in to access other things that other people that live within the town have access to. This group of young people were causing issues in and around the youth club within the community centre. And they were maybe like climbing on the roof, and it was causing issues to the volunteers who were running the youth club, but also to the other users of the community centre, to the point where the youth club said, actually, we don't want to run anymore because we don't feel safe to do so. So the community safety patrol team went out and they did a bit of scanning, they doing some patrols in the area, got to know the individuals that were involved, speaking to the parents. They spoke to the people that were using the community centre, and also the youth club workers and all the other people involved with the issue who were impacted, and to work out what the issue was. And then we looked at who was involved. They did some initial home visits to the individuals to say to their parents, look, did you know your young person's involved in this? With that, some of them, we didn't hear from them again because the parents didn't know, so they took action themselves. But some of the parents actually said, we weren't aware, please can you help us, what can we do? So that's when they referred them back into us, and we looked at things like acceptable behaviour contracts. We also looked at working with the youth club and with the other users of the community centre to say, where can we find a happy medium here, because we need everyone to be able to access this facility. Some of those young people were issued with acceptable behaviour contracts in conjunction with working with their parents and their schools, which gave them conditions around what is acceptable behaviour, what's not acceptable behaviour, but also then looking at the longer term of what can be done in terms of getting the youth club back up and running. Those acceptable behaviour contracts have been in place for a few months now. Some of them responded to them very, very well and came off them quite quickly, and had conditions around just generally being safe, and a bit of education around, actually, did you realise what you think is fun is actually frightening this person? And so it's a bit of a reset for them. Some of them have come off and it's gone really well. Others still continue to need that bit of support, and we're kind of gradually moving them off. We've looked at also joint visits with their housing association as well, because some of them are residents, so it's within the locality of the property. So it's about saying to parents, actually, this behaviour that your young person is getting involved with is actually potentially putting your tenancy at risk. But then it's looking further as well into those families, into those individual children, see what other support they need, what other referrals need to happen. And as a result of that, we've, as Dan mentioned, we get the community feedback surveys. So the CSPOs have gone out and got some more surveys, and they've continued to do those patrols. They've continued to engage with those residents and have done some work with them around how you report, where you report things to, and making sure that reports are directed in the right way. So it's not just because they've got to know their local community safety patrol officer that they're emailing them, because actually we're not in all the time. It's about making that call to 101, getting your crime reference number, and then we know you've reported it. And so we've got some evidence. Based on that evidence, as Dan mentioned, our analyst, she's then kept an eye on this through our problem solving focus group, and actually they've reported, and it's probably more now, but initially after the first couple of months, a 64% decrease in antisocial behaviour reports from that area, which is massive, which means people are feeling safer, people are also feeling more empowered to report. And the work, as I say, continues. And now, through some of the work that our CSPAs have done, they've actually got the parents to be, and some of the residents to kind of form a bit of a support group. So they're talking to each other, they're having coffees, they're getting to know each other, taking a bit of responsibility and kind of empowering that community to almost self-police themselves. So that's a really simple kind of example of some of the things. It's just a few individuals causing an issue, but actually how complex that is to deal with. But actually within that, no one's been arrested, no one's had any formal outcomes. It's just that resetting. So that's really positive. And another way of looking at the joined up working. And then another one, we also deal with antisocial behaviour case reviews, which used to be known as community triggers. So this is where individuals who have raised and reported antisocial behaviour, often to more than one organisation, can request for a review of their case. We'll have a look at that, and if it meets the threshold, so if there's been 3 reports within 6 months of antisocial behaviour, we'll go to all the partners that were involved. We'll maybe ask the housing association. We'll ask whoever's involved in that, all of the stakeholders, to give us their initial evidence to say, what do you know, how are you involved with this, which includes many of the departments within our own council as well. So we'll go to licensing, we'll go to our housing team, see who knows what, pull it together, and then we will get our get all the people that can be part of the solution and sometimes part of the issue in the same room with those residents. One example of that is we have had an abandoned building near the town area that was in a residential area. It's been abandoned for a very long time. There's a residents' car park which is right on the back fence of this building, and the building was being used. There were people gaining access to the building, throwing things off the roof, throwing things over the fence, landing on cars. So residents felt they had to move their vehicles, they didn't feel safe to park there, and that then's causing parking issues in the rest of the street. They're also trying to deal with the people in the building in themselves, and therefore getting abuse and things like that. So we contacted the owner, and working alongside the police as well, and our planning team and our environmental health team, everybody in the room together, giving those residents the chance to speak about what's happening. This is right where they live. How is this impacting you? How long has it been going on for? What other things can we do? How would you feel about this? What are your thoughts on what could be happening, and a bit of a reset then on what should be happening. So looking at whose responsibility it is. Actually, it's the owner of the building's responsibility to make sure it's secure, make sure that there aren't missiles and projectiles that can be thrown to cause damage. It's not the responsibility of the residents to police that. So we said to the residents, actually, here's your opportunity to speak to the owner. We gave the owner some actions to go away, secure the building, and now the residents don't feel like they have to police that anymore. They can park their cars back there. The owners also got their own security involved. So again, residents don't need to do that. They can be safe to knowledge there is security there. And then the CSPOs were patrolling around the area, and those individuals that we can identify, again, we go and speak to parents, we'll go and speak to the local schools to say this is an issue. And those are the kind of the actions that we can take away, because often as a community safety team, as a council, we might not have the responsibility as such, but we will take away actions like, well, actually, let's talk to the schools, let schools know that we've got issues with people in buildings and things like that. And then as a part of that, the action plan, we then look at the action plan every few months, as agreed with the residents, to say, right, we'll run this for about 6 months, but maybe in a couple of weeks' time we'll check back in with you, see how things are going, and some of those actions will be longer. And then eventually, with this one, they were able to have an open dialogue with the owner of the building, because a lot of it was around their fears of what would happen for the future as well, so things that hadn't happened yet. So it's about managing those expectations, and also giving the police the opportunity to say, we're not going to respond to a building necessarily. If there's security there, that's the job. So it's kind of that managing expectations as well, and directing our resources and partners' resources in the right way. So that's a more complicated kind of thing that we deal with. And then the other thing that we have is the alcohol-related public spaces protection order, which covers nuisance related to alcohol in the town centre. That's been in place for the last 4 years, so it's been renewed again for another year. That just covers people who are drinking alcohol and likely to cause a nuisance. So it's not an alcohol exclusion zone. It doesn't cover rough sleeping or begging or anything like that. It just supports the feelings of safety for people who are visiting and working, and the businesses within the town. That's the area for that is based on evidence again, so where we know there are issues with antisocial behaviour related to alcohol, and where a lot of our nighttime economy, where our licensed premises are, and that's in place for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But what it doesn't do is it's not an alcohol exclusion zone. It's just a way of saying to people, actually, nuisance related to alcohol won't be tolerated, and our preferred way is engagement. So officers will go and speak to people that have alcohol in the town and just say, look, we know you're drinking, just be mindful that, you know, if you are starting to get a bit loud, maybe move away from the area, and if we need to, we can actually take some enforcement action by pouring away alcohol and things like that, and people generally tend to move. So that's just another example of how we can use that power for public space protection order, just like Dan was talking about the dog fouling one, as something that we can do again to improve those feelings of safety. And I think that's probably, and then again in terms of, I think that's it on the kind of case study side. Next slide. And then the other thing we do is we manage 2 partnership action groups. So a lot of you will have been to our training sessions, and some of you have been involved with being part of sometimes the antisocial behaviour panel and our problem solving focus group. So we coordinate those groups. The antisocial behaviour panel manages cases and individuals, and we take referrals there from all of our partners as well as our own teams, but we also take referrals in from schools, and we consider risk there and look at strategies for supporting individuals, and again it's about action planning. The other one we look at is the problem solving focus group, which is more around locations. Just in terms of a few figures, so between September 24 and October 2025 we have had 60 cases referred into the panel from various partners, and also as a result of those referrals we've had 13 acceptable behaviour contracts, and we're currently managing 12 of those. So it shows the volume of what we get through in addition to our normal work as well.
And just to summarise really in terms of some of that work and what that looks like in terms of some of the data across the Safe Communities team. A few snapshots here. 38 fixed penalty notices have been issued. 5 of them were failure to comply with public space protection order. 33 relating to littering. It's quite an increase really in the past year actually compared to the previous year of FPNs issued. Part of that is due to some focus work which the team have been doing around some of the dog fouling issues, and also with some additional training which the team have received as well to help empower that. We've reviewed 6 antisocial behaviour case reviews. They are the numbers of them have been generally increasing. So the team coordinate each case and including whether that's met the criteria, as Debbie's already mentioned. And mentioned already around 60 referrals dealt with by the community safety team. 93% of people said they felt safer as a result of community safety activity which took place. In the past year, we've had 2 domestic homicide reviews which have been ongoing, and had 13 acceptable behaviour contracts as well. 1,923 incidents dealt with CSPOs during their patrols. Just to give a bit of an idea of what that looks like, 17%, so 327 of them incidents relate to rowdy and inconsiderate behaviour. 11% have related to begging, and 9% related to alcohol possession in the PSPO area, 8% fly tipping. With the begging and the alcohol possession, there's likely been a bit of an increase on them compared to previous years due to some additional police funding or some Home Office funding, which is done through the police in relation to the antisocial behaviour hotspot, which covers our town centre area. So some additional patrols have taken place within that area to enable us to be dealing with some of them things, as well as in response to what the businesses in specifically the top of town area are saying in relation to antisocial behaviour. So this is just really a bit of a snapshot, highlighting some of the work across the team. There's plenty of other examples of work which has taken place as well, including some of the contributions at various other multi-agency case meetings like COP-MET and the Habitual Knife Carriers meeting, our contribution representation at other partnership boards, the administration and coordination of the Community Safety Partnership alongside our colleagues at Hart and Rushmore, as well as them problem profiles with detailed analysis on crime and antisocial behaviour, and recommendations for partners in delivering community safety. Which leads me on to just talk about the partnership approach to community safety. There's a quote on there, policing is too important to be left to the police alone. It's quite an old quote by Sir Ronnie Flanagan, former Home Office Chief Inspector of Constabulary. But I think actually rings very true in the fact that it takes, very much takes a partnership effort to have a real impact in some of these issues which we're talking about. And I think we look at that from a localised approach as well as a wider area approach as well. So on a local level and within our own team on a day-to-day basis, we're working together closely with partners. That can include internally as well, and particularly with the area of work which we do, that might need to include close collaboration with many other colleagues across the council from all sorts of areas in terms of that partnership response. Particularly kind of the kind of tactical and operational level. So yeah, that can include probably some of our key ones: environmental health, our property services team, street cleansing and grounds maintenance, natural environment and housing teams, working very closely with on a day-to-day basis. Other partner agencies operating in the borough, such as the police, housing associations, the fire service, or some from our voluntary and community sectors as well. Which will help in that response to community safety issues. Then kind of a little bit wider and some of the more strategic approach, the work which we do in partnership across the Community Safety Partnership, which is bringing together the main authorities who have that statutory duty to work together to reduce crime and disorder across our area. And the partnership is identifying them strategic priorities, and that's based on that evidential-led approach for the local area. That ensures a coordinated approach to managing issues together and also monitors the performance and identifies risks and challenges. And as mentioned at the start of the meeting, that's scrutinised by a joint council committee on an annual basis. And then also we're thinking about that working in partnership at a Hampshire or even national-wide level as well, or through South East regions. So that might include, obviously, we have our colleagues at the police, Hampshire Constabulary, Hampshire Fire and Wildlife and Fire and Rescue Service. We need to ensure that collaboration of other partnership boards across the county. So that can include Safeguarding Adults and Children's Board, our Prevent Partnership Board, our Violence Reduction Partnership, Domestic Abuse Partnership Board, how we work with our public health colleagues at Hampshire County Council and Emergency Planning, and the Community Safety Strategy Group as well. So there's many ways which we're working in that kind of partnership arena. We have, and I think key to that is having some really strong relationships, and I think they exist across all levels. I think that's built on many years of that work, and we've embedded that into our systems of work and practice. When we think about, this is just bread and butter work to the team, and how we approach things in Basingstoke. It's all about that working together in partnership, and it's well embedded into our systems. Obviously, with that, there is obviously challenges which come with that as well. As we heard at the start of the meeting, some of that commitment from other organisations, particularly when other organisations may be under significant financial constraints, that can limit their capacity to fully engage in partnership efforts. That's something which we need to consider. I'm just very briefly going to cover what some of the community safety partnership priorities are. You'll see that they're quite broad: antisocial behaviour, domestic abuse, serious violence, improving the feelings of safety, and some dedicated town centre crime and antisocial behaviour issues as well. All again evidence-led priorities, which are formed from an annual strategic assessment, which is carried out. And looks at what them priorities should be and makes recommendations of how we work together to resolve some of them. Cool. I'll go back to Debbie just to cover some other proactive community safety responses.
Yeah, so this just shows some of the other things that we do outside of casework. So we work very closely with our some of our voluntary partners as well. So Neighbourhood Watch are one of our key partners. They're often with us at a lot of our events that we do. They sometimes they'll come with us when we're doing our counsellor training as well, because again they're kind of our sort of unsung heroes in a way, because they're a good way for us to get information out to residents, but they're also a good way to gauge what's happening. We are making sure that our CSPOs also know who their Neighbourhood Watch coordinators are in the area, and just kind of getting to know them, getting to know what their issues are. And through them we can give them our information, as well as regularly we'll give them things that they can go and give to other residents. So for example, we have produced our own no cold calling stickers, so that's quite popular. So they will go around and they will give those out to some residents if they feel they've got vulnerable residents within where they are. But also, as it says on there, Safer Streets funding, we had some money to from Safer Streets, and with that the Neighbourhood Watch, we've been doing an outbuilding security project with them. So we've had some locks, and we've had padlocks, locks, and lights to for outbuildings where people have got like a shed or something like that, where there's been where there have been burglaries, or where they think that they're likely to be broken into. We've been able to work with Neighbourhood Watch to supply those to members of Neighbourhood Watch schemes, where to enable them to have that conversation around crime prevention, but also giving them something meaningful. So if their shed has been broken into, actually we're able to provide those locks, and that's where one of our team is tonight at the Neighbourhood Watch Committee meeting, looking at the next phase of that, to see where else it needs to go. And also it's a good opportunity for us to speak to Neighbourhood Watch about what some of the areas are where they perhaps don't have coordinators, and maybe we can suggest to Neighbourhood Watch some of the areas where they might want to start looking at reaching out to. So that's really positive. We've recently been involved in a partnership bid for some funding for some detached youth work, which hopefully will be starting in the area fairly soon. And that's something that we've been quite lacking in the Basingstoke area for many years, and I think that's kind of similar across lots of areas actually. So we're very fortunate that's going to happen, because that gives young people something meaningful and something positive to get involved with. That's another organisation they can get to know, and we can put them in our what we call our hotspot areas as well, where we know we've got young people that are gathering and maybe getting involved in antisocial behaviour. So it's a way of diverting them. We also, as a lot of you are aware, we do annual counsellor training on community safety awareness, as well as working quite closely with many of you who are getting in touch with us on a daily basis about issues, and as well as with our CSPOs. One of the other things we do are get involved in community events as well. So recently we've, our projects officers put one together at the YMCA as a result of them reporting to us that some of their residents were feeling a little bit unsafe, a little bit unsure, because they're a community in themselves, and I think there's 82 residents that live there, so it's quite a significant amount of people aging from about 18 to about 35, I think it is. So again, quite a diverse population. there for many different reasons, and sometimes they're there for short term, sometimes a little bit longer. So we went to there and had an event this summer, and we took with us a lot of our partners. So we took the police with us. We also took CSPOs. We took fire with us, who were giving out fire safety advice, because eventually they're going to be moving out into their own properties. We also, and off the back of that, there was some conversations with some of the people that are living there around how do I get to become a firefighter and things like that. So it was talking about recruitment and things like that, as well as we had Natural Basingstoke there and our environment team. So they were talking about recycling and all the things that you need to know as kind of the life skill kind of things, as well as our events team talking about what's going on in the borough, so they know when they're coming out, when they're walking out, actually this is where I need to go to access these things. So give them a bit of a flavour of what the council does, as well as who we work with, give them an opportunity to talk to their local police officer, who they probably wouldn't necessarily have need to come across, but actually to see them in their own area is quite nice to actually. And then again, there were conversations around recruitment and things like that. So, and then we also took some people from the mental health team. We took inclusion, alcohol services and things like that, just to show people that are living there what services there are in the borough that they can access, and give a bit of signposting. So that was really positive. Also, we support things like the interfaith walk, and we support violence. We also support other events that happen, other community events. So the CSPOs are often at local fates and things like that, along with the police, giving out crime prevention and community safety advice, and just being that visible presence, so that people get to see the uniforms and know actually we're quite approachable, come and talk to us. And that again is where we get a lot of our information from. We've done a lot of schools engagement last year with the designated safeguarding leads as well. So where we've had, and Hayley will come on to talk about a few operations, actually what we identified was what's useful is to speak to the safeguarding leads from the schools all together and say, these are the issues and these are concerns that and trends that are coming up for us in the borough as well as nationally. These are the schools maybe that we're identifying where there are issues, but actually generally as safeguarding leads, this is the things that you need to be aware of for your young people, as well as then being able to get information back from them to say, what is it you want more information on, what is it we can do, not just as a community safety team, but what partners do you need? So again, a bit of that kind of almost co-production in a way, of in terms of safeguarding and diverting our young people. And as a result from that, we've then encouraged the schools to use what we call the community partnership information forms, which some of you will be aware of is a way that professionals can get that, it's the information about what's going on. So it's not crime reporting, but it is that what's happening. We're aware that there might be something going on in this particular park, we're not sure what, but tell the police about it. So then it's a way then of looking again at those resources, saying actually what do we know, because we don't know what we don't know. So that's been really helpful. And again, we've been able to get our partners from the youth offending team in to talk about some of their interventions and some of their teams and things. We've also been recently with the family help team. Now they've gone to their locality model. We've been at their events talking to them about what we do, and then learning from them as well what they do, so we all know as agencies and organisations what we can do for each other. So that's really useful. One of the things we're particularly proud of as well is other community safety teams from across Hampshire will come to us and ask for advice and for best practice. So we've recently had colleagues from the Isle of Wight come and be part of our antisocial behaviour panel, getting some advice, getting some ideas, and we'll be doing some sort of cross collaboration there. So that's really good, and that's really important as well, to learn from others. And then also most recently as well, we've done a bike safety and security event. So again, with some of that Safer Streets funding, we had some bike locks. So we did a bike marking event with police, which is a massive success, even in the pouring rain. We gave out lots of bike locks, lots of information, got lots of bikes marked. And it's a really good way of, again, getting out a different kind of community safety message, and it's a positive thing, and a good way of engaging with people. So lots and lots of things going on there, as well as the more targeted things that we get involved with the police as well. So I won't steal Hayley's thunder, she'll come on to that.
It's fine, carry
Okay, just another, I'll just briefly cover this point, bit of a case study around, we refer to team-based Basingstoke. I'll talk about that partnership working, and it's about how we all come together and collaborate. And one of the ways which we do this is actually we hold a 6-monthly networking and training day for some of our team at the council, local housing associations, and our police designated neighbourhood teams as well. So that includes some training, learning and development in the shared environment, and the real important part of that is actually for colleagues to get to know each other, because actually when they're going to be working together on an operational level, particularly with some of the obviously there's been changes in personnel across each of them teams, to get to know each other, because actually if you can build them professional relationships at a local level, it really makes a difference in helping support local communities. So that's something which has worked really well. I'll pass over to Hayley now for a bit of a local policing update for you.
Just before I go on camera. Oh, it's very disconcerting seeing yourself. Well, Debbie and Dan have pretty much said everything, to be honest, but what I'll do is I'll just go through some bits and pieces that have come up that I think you'll probably want to know about anyway, and it will be kind of in line with those few bits and pieces mentioned on there. I've got absolutely no PowerPoint skills whatsoever, so I had to leave it up to Dan to add me onto his. Probably first thing to look at is obviously resourcing and demand. We've had quite a challenging summer, which is always the case. It comes around every year, funny enough, but we've obviously got the added demand now with protests locally, but kind of nationally as well. And as police forces, we have to offer assistance to other police forces as well. So that kind of impacts on our resourcing locally. So that has kind of like, and that is ongoing as well. That is still happening. They're really, really well managed, but obviously what we have to do is we have to make sure we've got the right resources in the right place to manage the protests while they're going on as well. So invariably what we see is we see an increase in the demand in the summer, and then on top of that we've got all the protest activity as well. So it has been busy. I've had to make a few decisions around sort of reallocation of resources and where I put my officers, just to make sure that we can respond to emergency calls and do all the important stuff that we have to do, which probably does impact on our ability to be visible in the communities as much as we'd like to be. That said, there's been some fantastic work that's happened as well. Just quickly, I'll mention, while we're talking about resourcing, what we also did in the summer. I think it was the 30th of August. We had a recruitment event, so we're kind of actively trying to recruit into kind of northern part of the county, because we want to try and get officers actually that really live locally, so that we can try to encourage people to come and work in Basingstoke, Hart and Rushmore. So we've gone out and we've started doing recruitment events ourselves. So we did one in Festival Place at the end of August. It was really successful. We had lots of people turn up. That was because there was a policeman with a dog and a policeman with a gun, and people like to come and see dogs and guns, it would seem. But I'm not ever going to be able to really say how many police officers we actually get as a result of that. But actually, it was a really good opportunity for them to see the officers come to Basingstoke and kind of see what we do. So hopefully I'll be looking to run that again as well. So I'll probably look at doing that sort of thing every 6 months, probably. And it's also a really good opportunity to engage with the public as well, because we were there all day, and lots of people came and spoke to us as well. So that was good. What I will say as a result, obviously we do have resourcing difficulties sometimes, but actually we've still managed to do some really, really good work in Basingstoke. I've been here for just over 12 months now, and what the officers and the teams achieve with Debbie and Dan's team as well in particular is really, really good. We've also solved about 14% more crime in the last 12 months compared to the year before. So, we're doing more with less, I think, is probably the best way to look at it at the moment. What we did in summer, we had something called Safer Summer Streets, which is actually quite hard to say. And again, that was kind of really aimed at that, the sort of ASB side of things, town centre work. We did 15 dedicated operations in the town centre, so that ranged from days of action to engagements. Again, passive dogs, people like the dogs. Talked about the recruitment days. We did 110 different patrols as a result of the Safer Summer Streets work that we've done. And throughout that, we've had sort of partnership meetings every week throughout the summer as well. So, and all of these operations that we've done have all been partnership operations. So pretty much everything that was arranged for the Safer Summer Street stuff was in conjunction with your teams as well, wasn't it? So, and that was really, really successful. And I think this is the sort, this is right slap bang in the middle of the summer as well, when we're kind of, we've obviously got all the other bits and pieces to deal with as well. And a lot of the reason we're able to do these operations and for them to be successful is because the teams work so well together, and we can utilise the CSPOs and just be able to be a bit more visible than we might be if we try to do it by ourselves. So that's really important. We've also got, we've now got a policing app, which is really helpful, because what we're obviously trying to engage with communities as best we can, but what we're also trying to do is there's a lot of work that the neighbourhood teams do that are kind of, it's almost sort of, it's not stuff that we can necessarily easily record, because it's just those sort of engagements, the patrols and all that sort of thing. But luckily, we're in a position now we can start to actually try and get a recording of how often we're communicating and how many patrols we're doing, engagements, etc. And we had this app arrive in force in May, and since then the teams have done 793 patrols and 387 engagements. So, that is pretty impressive, really, considering all the other things that they're trying to do as well. So I know sometimes it doesn't feel like they're as visible as maybe you would like them to be, but I think it's a good indication that they are out there doing a lot of stuff. It just might not be, obviously we'd like to see them more. Everybody would like to see them more, but there is lots of really good work that's happening. So in terms of the kind of community priorities, we've also got, hopefully you've all heard of Let's Talk, which is, it's kind of an online thing that we're able to do where it gives us the opportunity to hear what's important to the communities, because obviously my job is to make sure I put my officers in the right places, but that is generally dependent on kind of like the risk and, if we have any crime trends or any uptick in burglary, for instance. That would be my job to make sure that I've actually got the resources in the right place to deal with that. But what the Let's Talk app does is actually gives me an opportunity to hear about some of the other things that are important to communities as well, and we're able to respond to that. And that is when we look at kind of those operations, joint operations with Debbie and Dan's team. We try to go out and do what we can in relation to some of the issues that come up in relation to that as well. So I think I've got another section on op entitlement. I was going to talk about op entitlement, but some of the, have I got to wait until we get to that bit? Or shall I just go? Yeah. Shall I just go? Yeah. I've gone out of sync. So when we talk about ASB, which I think is one of the biggest concerns for some of the communities, we're actually seeing a really big reduction in ASB, and it continues to go down. But I think what we've done is that's because we've had some really, really successful operations, and as a partnership, we have got we formulated a process whereby we actually we can identify a problem. We talked about SARAs earlier on, so we can identify what the problem is, and then we put into practice how we're going to tackle that. Op entitlement is a particularly excellent piece of work that's happened in Basingstoke, and it's a partnership approach, and it was effectively kind of came about last year when there were six
6 young people who were identified between the ages of sort of 12 and 18, and they were responsible for sort of significant levels of antisocial behaviour and crime. What we did from that point on is we had a partnership approach to actually dealing with that, and I mean there was all sorts of serious violence happening. There was the number grew, the group numbers grew. There were more kids getting involved. So what we did is we put an approach in place whereby the partnership had, so Inspector Charlie Ilderton was leading it, and on a monthly basis there'd be partnership meetings. It would be education would be involved, children's services would be involved, and what we were able to do was we were able to actually prioritise the youths involved and try to kind of, I guess, red, amber, green type thing. So we would go, these are the kids that are causing the biggest problem. These are the kids that are sort of on the periphery of that, and they're the ones that we'd really like to be able to signpost. We'd get a lot of preventative work, and then we took quite a robust approach about with the smaller group of individuals who were causing a lot of the problems. What we did and then it kind of died off, but then we saw a reintroduction of it again, sort of earlier on in the year, and it increased. So what we then did is we went and we utilised everything that was available to us, really. So we have had kids where we've actually been able to use ABC, so acceptable behaviour contracts. We've utilised the ASB panel quite significantly. Behaviour orders, civil injunctions, which actually I just say is quite difficult when you're dealing with juveniles as well, because obviously we have to, the courts obviously don't like to, when we're dealing with juveniles, we need to make sure that we've given them every opportunity as well. So what we've tried to do is just keep going with all of those things so that we can, and almost take a sort of a staggered approach. So we would do whatever we could with those sort of civil injunctions and civil orders, especially with the repeat offenders. We have used child corns, so something called a child abduction warning notice. We have implemented shared patrols across all of our departments. We've had appeals that have gone out, so we've through CPI, so Community Protection Initiative, so in terms of encouraging our partners to give us intelligence in relation to it. We had risk management plans. We've utilised children's services, where we've managed to actually make sure that we're covering off all the safeguarding risk assessments around the children. What we also did, we then progressed on to, within the police, we put together a task force of a sergeant and 6 officers who then they're all part of, and that came within the neighbourhood policing team, our neighbourhood enforcement team, our CRD teams, and they were, over a 6-week period, they undertook 69 investigations, and they were all progressed to sort of positive outcomes. We had multiple intelligence logs that were submitted, and alongside all of the civil orders that we worked with the council in relation to. So, and as a result of it, we saw a massive reduction in risk. And what we've subsequently been able to do is we had another little spike, probably a couple of months ago, where we thought, well, crikey, is it going to be the same kids? But it turned out it wasn't. But what we were able to do is we were able to respond quite quickly to that, because we really learned from this piece of work. And just from a force perspective, this actual op entitlement has been recognised as one of the some best practice across the force about how to deal with that kind of situation, because it is particularly challenging when you're dealing with youth crime, youth ASB, because obviously, rightly, we have to make sure we're doing it all properly and we're going through all the right processes, but it isn't as quick and swift as perhaps people would like to see, and that's right when you're dealing with children, but it can be frustrating. But we've basically it's as a result of the partnership work, utilising everything that we had available to us, really. So that's like, from my perspective, it's just been, it was an exceptional piece of work, but it's actually enabled us to go, okay, we can now just almost drop that every time we have that situation. Hopefully not too often, but if we do, we can almost just drop that model and go, right, this is what we're going to do. We pick up and we know how to go, we know what we're going to do with it. And I think in terms of Debbie and Dan's teams as well, you know, it was all so well coordinated between us, that I think we're all pretty confident that actually, as you know, as and when we pick up these things, we can kind of drop that model wherever we need to. That's kind of it from my perspective, really. Obviously, I'm sure you're going to ask questions afterwards, but is there anything else I need to cover off, Dan?
I think said about reporting, but we probably just cover the data quickly. And, anything on that, which is there?
Yeah, we've had it's not too bad, really. It looks all right. There's no massive spikes in there, is it? We had a slight increase in crime overall, but not massive numbers, really. And ASB, we invariably see seasonal spikes through the summer, but actually on the whole, ASB is on a general decline, actually. So it feels, it's, you know, I'm really pleased with that, and actually I think that's as a result of everything that we do, and we never take there will never not be a focus on ASB either. That is always going to be something that is a priority for us. But I think what we are really good at when we talk about crime and any kind of like increase in crime, what we are really good at is working together, sort of internally from a police perspective as well, because it's important that we all utilise all the departments within the police service well as well. But also with regards to our partnership approach, we're actually able to identify any kind of like spikes in crime, particular crime types, or if we on the horizon we're getting a little bit nervous, or we're thinking that there's a concern there's something that's not feeling very we're not very happy about it, we're able to actually respond to it quite quickly and in a really joined up way. So I actually think the work I think in the time that I've been in Basingstoke, and obviously was in a previous district, I think the partnership work is actually one of the best things that I've taken from coming to Basingstoke as well. And I think the results that we see, given the policing resourcing picture, I think is as a result of that partnership stuff. So it's all good. Can I come off camera now? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for a very, very thorough briefing and report. I'm sure people will have questions. I can see Sean has put his hand up. Jenny's hiding behind Sean. She's probably got a hand up. Okay, the first one, right, I've got Sean, and I saw John and Stacey. So start with Sean.
I'm sure everyone here agrees with me that the work that you all do is amazing, and obviously is an asset for the whole of the borough. But I'm just asking, maybe Dan, can you just clarify the work pattern? Because obviously you've got 12 in your team. That means you've probably got one person off at a time with annual leave, and then there's sickness on top. So I'm just wondering, is there a sort of a significant period of time when there's no one in each ward or area that is covered? Do you see what I mean? And if there is there a justification to have more CSPOs to cover the borough?
Thank you. Yeah, good question. I think in terms of the way which we resource the team's activity is based around ASB, that data-led model of what exists and how we can best align that to the problems which are happening at the time. So considering that through our various working groups, our problem solving focus group in particular, which will look at localised geographic areas and actually where there's most impact. The team also from that operate what they call their priority patrol area list. So yeah, we're aware of lots and lots of different problems. Sometimes they'll be dealt with at a local level, at a ward level, picked up ordinarily by the point of contact for that particular area. Other times, if we feel that actually we need a bit more of a substantial response to this, actually we need to target patrols, increase patrols in that area. We then might look at adding that to the team's priority patrol list, and then that will be prioritised over everything else for them particular points in time. It's in terms of going back to your first point around numbers on each team. So yeah, there's obviously with the 12 across the team, then the coordination from that. So we have a shift supervisor, which is out and about on the ground as well. They'll pick up at the start of the day and coordinate the work of the team on an operational basis to establish the kind of priorities for the team and where we can go. Obviously, with so much resource, you can only do so much. So yeah, depending on what that is, but I think actually the way the team work and operates is quite effective at covering the kind of areas which need that attention the most, and that's across the borough as well, including our rural and town communities.
Do you feel you need more?
I do. I'm not going to be shy on that one.
Yeah, I mean, we undertook a quite comprehensive team review and structure exercise in the past year. I think we were very thorough in what that looked like. Obviously, yeah, with more resourcing, what we can offer reflects into them patrols. I think that it'd be great. Obviously, having more, you can potentially do more as well. But obviously, there's factors which exist in that with budgets and other considerations as well, which we have to think about.
Is that it, Sean?
Can I just have a supplementary to Hayley, if that's all right? Because obviously, with recruitment, are there any gaps at the moment that you need to fill? And are you able to give like a northern uplift for Northern Hampshire to recruit people?
I always want more staff, and yeah, we do have gaps, but we are actively trying to, like I said, in relation to the recruitment stuff, we're actively trying to recruit into North. I think where we are in the north of the county, we're obviously on the border of lots of other forces as well, and they're various different. I'm not even sure what they're called, but other forces offer different incentives, etc. So we kind of have that sort of crossover issue in terms of, so what we're trying to do is actively encourage people that sort of live locally, so that we can try to kind of grow our own, if you like, in respect of that. And yeah, we have those difficulties which maybe aren't present in the east and the west of the county as much. Yeah. But that's why we're kind of trying to actively go out and have those recruitment days. I think, what was the last bit of the question? When you said it, I thought, I'm not sure I know the answer to that.
Is there like a pay incentive? Because obviously the cost of living. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think, I
like
don't think that's anything that I can't really comment on that. And it is definitely something that we probably have a challenge with regards to like the Met, and they do tend to have those kind of. There's an actual. It's called something I can't remember. It's something in waiting. That's it. Yeah. And so we do have those challenges, and I guess if you live on the border of Hampshire or somewhere else, Yeah. So, but what is happening within the forces? There's lots of discussions at senior levels about how we can sort of what solutionise that, and what we can try to look at to try and make it as an attractive prospect. I think so. That is above my pay grade, but they definitely there is definitely lots of conversations around that, and lots of focus around the northern resourcing as well. So it's all really positive in terms of the conversations that we're having, and just that ability that, you know, we're actively going out and trying to do the events sort of from a localised perspective as well, which is good. And like I say, there's a real appetite to keep those going, and just kind of try to encourage people that live locally to work locally as well.
Yeah.
John.
Right, thank you. So I agree with Councillor Dillo. I think the community safety team does some excellent work, and I think you particularly in terms of prevention and reassuring communities, and also taking action when police resources are stretched. We've got a very good community safety patrol officer in Evingar, looking after Evingar. He's Drew Meachin, and the good thing is he's been there for some time, so there's some consistency there. But I'm struck by the fact that he is covering effectively a quarter to a third of the borough, and you make the point well that being visible is one of the big positive features of our CSPO service in the borough, and I'm struggling to understand how he can be visible when he's covering such a large geography. So it's really a question about, you know, how whether that balance is right. It's not a criticism, it's just a question for you, really. So that's first one. Second one was the example Debbie gave of antisocial behaviour and youths over a long period of time. I thought this is sounding very familiar to me as ringing bells, and I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't in my ward. And in fact, I'm not quite clear why we're sort of not revealing where it is, because I'm quite happy to do so, because it's a public thing as far as I'm concerned. It's Bishop's Green. Am I right?
You are.
Yes, good.
Just because we are dealing with talking about young people.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not going to sort of name names or anything of the sort, but it's an issue in the community, and it's discussed at parish council level. And the point I'm making tonight is that I get contacted as a councillor by residents who are affected by this. I'm making one individual particular who's contacting me, and so I did what I could to help. I contacted the CSPO. I've also contacted the police. But I think when you take action, and you did take action, and you've done some good work there and dealing with this, strangely, the one person or the one group that you're not good at contacting is the borough councillor. So as scope for improvement might be to contact the borough councillor and let him know what's going on, because I discovered that there'd been this big push made and after the event, and I think it would have been useful to know what you were intending to do. So I have very good communication with Drew, excellent, but I think with your team there might be some scope for improvement, if I could say that. Okay. I've got a couple of points for Hayley, but I'm not. Yes, fine. Okay. So if you'd like to respond to those.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Isaac. I think in terms of the first point which you made around the nature of the area coverage and being responsive to community issues and patrols in them areas, I think that's done. So it's not just about that kind of patrol visibility. And when I look at visibility, I think about other methods of being able to do that. And I think communication is a really key one of them. Actually, it's around us being responsive to issues which are happening and having the most effect and impact on local residents. And being effective in how we best respond to their need. But there is still that way of, as you mentioned, with CSPO Drew Meccan around that communication with parish councils, with community groups, and encouraging that. And from that, we get that information about where issues might be taking place, and then can prioritise the resources to manage that most effectively within that area. In the second point, which you relate to, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think that communication is key, and I think it's around how we communicate effectively. A lot of that might be done through having that single point of contact. So quite often with our CSPOs, they are the ones out and about within that community setting, and can have that be that conduit for that point of contact for relaying issues which have happened or action which is taking place. And working across the team and working in a collaborative manner, that can be done quite closely together as well. So sometimes what the community safety team might be doing, that message can be relayed through the CSPO sometimes.
Okay, I'll go to Stacey next.
Did I get it? Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you, Chair. I'll echo my colleagues' points on the team at large. You do great work, and I personally have benefited from exhaustive amounts of time on some very knotty things from the team in the office and on the ground. So thank you for that personally. I would echo slightly what Councillor Isaac said just there, in terms of, I was thinking of the problem solving groups. It might not necessarily need to be an invitation per se, but if there are specific things that you're looking at problem solving wise, it might be that we have a degree of insight or not, but no harm in asking in those situations as and when they come up in individual wards. You answered most of what I wanted to ask already, but I wondered about the ASB panel referrals that you referred to. Where are they coming from? Is it a specific place or a mix of areas?
So with them, they come from all across the borough. So because we deal with young people, adults, neighbour disputes, all kinds of things, they are a wide range from all over the place. Actually, a lot of them have come from, in terms of partner-wise, a lot of them in the past probably 6 months have come more from police and schools and that kind of thing, but I don't think there's any specific kind of, there's no one more, and there's no one partner over the other, and there's no kind of area that they come from over the other either.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions for Hayley, but we can come back around if you... Thank you.
Okay, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Can I echo something that's already been raised? Obviously, looking at who the PCSOs are, both the Tadley wards are in one. You may know that these are the two largest population wards in the borough. I've got the largest ward at 8,600 people, and Tadley North has got the second largest at 8,400, which, when I add them up, comes to 17,000 people in that area. So I think the old PCSO has got an awful lot on their plate, because it's not just built-up area. There's an awful lot of rural community in there as well. So I take the same point as Councillor Isaac, that obviously it's quite thinly spread. So a bit of a follow-up question to that is whether or not the police, because I know that we've got a police constable's been allocated to our areas, and one of them comes to the town council meeting and gives a bit of an update, but I think he's from the Tadley North side, not from my side, because Tadley's split in a very strange way. Obviously, if there's extra resources from the police, that might help, but I know you do work together. And the feedback, I raised an issue on community safety locally, and the only way I got some feedback was asking the residents if people had done things, and I was told they were, so I didn't make a big fuss about it. But it would be useful for the two-way feedback, which I echo. Can I ask a question about antisocial behaviour? You talked about young people in particular. And I'm safeguarding governor at my school, so I know an awful lot of stuff comes via all the schools, because obviously that's where often the impact is being felt with whatever's going on in the community. But it isn't just young people that are calling antisocial behaviour. In an area nearby to my ward, but because I know people there who ring me up, some of the housing association houses that used to be just for people over 60 or retired people has now reduced the age down to 55. And there are some issues with people of that sort of age living in the community with older residents who've been there a long while, who perhaps are misbehaving, perhaps because it's drug related or whatever they're doing, and they don't seem to be getting very far with the housing association about doing anything about it. I just wonder what I can, because they asked me what they can do. Obviously, I tell them to report when these things are happening. If people are standing in the street in the middle of the night and throwing bricks at windows or whatever they're doing, which I'm sure they will continue to do, but it does seem that it doesn't seem to be sorting it out. And I know housing associations have to go through the contract. So do you give the contract to a person over 55, a behaviour contract or not? Or is that only applied to younger people?
So the work that we do with acceptable behaviour contracts, we will do them from usually around, the youngest is kind of about 8 years old-ish, up until there's no upper limit on that. So we would look at acceptable behaviour contracts. I think in the example that you're talking about, I think firstly it's probably worth us picking this up outside of this, and I'm happy to do that and talk to you around what that issue is. But I think what would usually happen is if there's an issue like that where there is housing association tenants involved, then we would look to work with them to see what evidence they've got. And again, it's that evidence gathering. What are the issues? Is it just clash of lifestyle? And then work through that process. So I think that's probably what we need to do with this one as well, is just to have a bit of a closer look with that with our partners. I'm happy to pick that up with you outside.
Okay. That's fine. I've got a question about speed watch, which I suppose is more for the police. You want me to do that in the police round?
Well, I'm just like, everyone having a couple as they go around.
Okay.
So.
Yep. Okay.
Jenny.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'll split my 5 questions into 2. Just following this theme of resource and where it's allocated and how it all gets divvied up. I represent the Chinham ward. We rarely see people out there, and I get why, because generally speaking, although we do get antisocial behaviour, a lot of e-scooters, and we do get cannabis factories, it's generally a fairly quiet place, so I get that. I was just wondering if either the police or our own community safety team do a heat map of where the resource is being used across the year. We could anecdotally say where we would expect to see the most activity, but I think as councillors it would be helpful for us to see that, because that's where resource is obviously being or ought to be put and applied. So it would help with large geographical areas, for example. It might actually be absolutely correct, because your heat map shows that comparatively speaking, it might be less there and a heck of a lot somewhere in the town centre. But a heat map, I think, would be really, really useful if it's something that we could do. And whilst we're looking at sort of resource and things, do we know what the comparative community safety structure and resources in Rushmore and Hart, looking forward to the days when we might have a unitary with them? Do we know if it's similar or not? Thank you.
I can pick up on both them points. In terms of the heat map questions, a really good point. We don't actually have a heat map as such available in terms of where patrols have been carried out. I think Hayley referenced some new technology which the police are using to record patrols. I'm not sure in terms of the functionality of heat maps and things like that. The closest we probably have is in terms of where incidents might have been dealt with, and we can see a mapping of roughly where incidents have, or not roughly, but specifically where incidents have taken place. I think, importantly, and I know from the kind of day-to-day and the operations of the team, they are out and patrolling all of them areas across the borough. Obviously, as I mentioned before, that they are done in a prioritised to where need is, where issues are occurring and need is the most. But even still, and sometimes there is that opportunity to be out and in some of them areas which perhaps don't get as much attention. But it's definitely something which we can look into to see what functionality there might be to how a heat map could operate. I think that would be quite an effective tool about demonstrating the kind of reach across the borough, which I know is going on, but it's demonstrating that. So that's a good point and something to take away and look at. And in relation to the structure across our colleagues at Hart and Rushmore, we work closely on a partnership level, and I think actually there's quite a lot of similarities in terms of structure. So I know Rushmore have a similar with some slight variances in terms of their patrol capability. And also some of their community safety functions are fairly closely aligned with how we do things in Basingstoke. Hart, probably on a slightly smaller scale, operate from a community safety team and some of that case management in a very similar way, without the patrol capability directly for in the same aspect of what we deliver in Basingstoke.
Have you ever thought, just following up about the sort of activity in different wards, if we haven't got a heat map, have you considered having, say, quarterly, literally half hour, 1 hour catch-ups with the ward councillors for the areas that, if we've got a CSPO with specific areas, just having a catch-up with them to talk about what activity has been going on in their area? Because as Councillor Isaac and others here tonight have said, is that we go to the parish council meetings and it's there that people often, members of the public will attend or parish councillors will ask, and it's so much easier to deal with it there and then rather than having to come away, send emails, say what's happening, pass the information back. So just getting that, because we don't necessarily have to have the detail, it's understanding the types of things that have been going on. If there's been a dog patrol, if there's been fines, those kinds of things in your ward are really, really helpful to have. So I wonder if it might be possible to consider that. Thank you.
I think we can definitely take that away and look at how that's dealt with. I think it's really important for that communication to happen, and completely agree. I think it's a way of each ward area works in a slightly different way, and each council will work in a slightly different way. So I think it's around that contact which the team can have with local ward members and actually have some kind of agreement in place of what will work best mutually in ways of getting that update. So, but yeah, can definitely take that back.
As well, just to add on to that as well, our analyst produces every year our strategic assessment, so that's an annual document, and then that is updated every 6 months as well, so that's available on the website. So that's a good place to start if you want to look at some of the things in a more broader way, but that certainly that information is there.
Okay, I'm going to jump in with a couple of questions myself now. So I'm actually going to ask Hayley a couple of questions. One is about issues around potential knife crime, knife carrying in Basingstoke, and if that's, I don't believe it's particularly as big an issue as elsewhere, but if there's any information around that one. And the other things around, to go back to resourcing and we did have a chat about the specials and their role, and we haven't talked about them tonight. So the special constables, and obviously they could potentially be somebody that could interface between with the CSPOs, if we've got them, and what sort of recruitment's being done to try and encourage people to do that, because that obviously is another way of engaging with people and getting voluntary people to help out, and then they see that visibility, which again could fill that gap.
So I just start on the whole that there isn't an issue with knife crime in Basingstoke. It's something that, from a policing perspective, we always have our eye on, but there is not a knife crime problem in Basingstoke. You might see violence associated with drug lines, etc., but on the whole, it's not an issue, and it isn't something that I'm worried about at the moment. We're particularly hot on it as well. So if there is anything that comes up in relation to any kind of knife-related instance, it will be dealt with very robustly and very quickly. But there isn't an issue in relation to that. Second one, in relation to specials. We have. The specials team also have like a ranking system, so I'm sort of in contact with the specials chief inspector, and we do have special officers who work out of Basingstoke. They tend to be utilised within our response teams at the moment, as opposed to kind of our neighbourhood engagement teams. But what we can do is we can utilise them for specific operations, for sort of engagement events, etc. So they're a resource that we would try to sort of tap into. A lot of the operations that we talk about, we would actually say, right, we would like to utilise our specials team if we can. Outside of they will have sort of regular hours that they come and they work with a specific team, but then we can also ask them to sort of mobilise, if you like, for specific operations as well. In terms of recruitment, I can't answer that directly about what that looks like, and specific numbers or anything from that perspective. But that always forms part of our recruitment process. The sort of specials team will be something that we will always try to recruit into, and we utilise them a lot across the force as well. So I don't know what the numbers are or whether we have any specific campaigns for that, but obviously just general recruitment. It will just be ongoing with regards to the specials.
Thank you. Right, now, Karen?
I think most of what I was going to ask has been covered, to be honest, by other councillors. But I would like to say that I agree with Councillor Isaac about the Evangar, and because Drew covers Evangar, Whitchurch, Overton and Laverstoke. And I will also say that he's very good. He attends our parish council meetings quite regularly. I didn't go to yesterday's, unfortunately, because I wasn't feeling too good, but he usually provides an update at meetings, and we've also had, I think, as a special might have been there, or certainly a police officer been there at meetings as well. So we're quite well covered. The other thing I was going to ask about was because we've also had a problem where over 55 places, housing association places, but they've been covered. I was going to ask about the age as well, if that was covered. The other thing, the youth, detached youth work, what does that look like? I think I was just going to ask about that, because I'm just thinking about there's a lot of problems with youth, and sometimes it's just boredom and not having things to do. Certainly in the Overton area, we've had instances of vandalism of play park equipment recently, which I think you've been contacted about, and certainly Drew put more sort of patrols in and things like that.
I can pick up on the point in relation to some of the youth work and activity which is going to be taking place. So this is something where I mean, previously, obviously, it's not a borough council responsibility in terms of youth work directly. That sits with the top tier authority. However, I think there's lots of really good local youth clubs which operate across the borough, and they're so important to young people. And we've seen, and again, it's working in collaboration and partnership with some of them youth groups before, and some of them offer their own detached youth work programs as well, is massively valuable. I think probably over more recent years we've seen decline in number. There's more less funded roles available, less support from other kind of authorities in relation to that, and often relying on volunteers as well. And as we know, people are very busy in their day-to-day lives, sometimes haven't got that ability to be able to volunteer because of other commitments which they've got. So it's important that we can try and continue, and I think it's been recognised that actually that would be a valuable to have some additional detached youth work and align with some of our other what the community and voluntary sector already do. And there has been some funding from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, which was a partnership bid between local partners led by Sovereign Network Group, including us, and the police are involved in that as well, to look at where detached youth work can, the ability to have some additional funds for detached youth work, and also some council funding as well for that. I think at the moment it's very much going to be in its infancy. I think it's around developing what that looks like and not rushing in, and that it's going to cover everywhere at once. I think this is going to cover small pockets, but actually I think it's a way of looking at is this effective, and how can this be best used, and then looking at something which has sustainable funding routes in the future will be really important. The key thing for us is actually that we're working alongside and with these organisations is really important, and Youth Options are going to be delivering some work. We've already been in close collaboration with and working with them on where kind of there is most identified need at the moment, where would be best, but that can be flexed as well depending on the needs at the time. But yeah, I think it's with the resourcing and funding which is available currently, it's brilliant because we've got something which we can move forward with. I think it's around then building forward the evidence picture to say this is really valuable, where can we look at potential sustainable funding routes for the future to continue this from happening as part of our kind of wider response to antisocial behaviour.
Before I go around to seconds, I'm going to go to Sheena.
I've had reported actually yesterday footpath safety, whereby residents who are just walking their dog, and then suddenly they're met by a speeding bike and scooter. On this occasion, it was a speeding bike that nearly ran over their dog, and then he was very abusive to them. And it was just a footpath, not a bike path as well. I mean, most people are respectful and they will slow down, and most people that use their bikes, it's not an issue. But it's becoming a bit more frequent, and it's just something that I've thought maybe that's an issue in other areas as well. What can be done about that, do you think?
I can probably come in on this one, and I know there's been a lot of joint work between us and the police in relation to some of these issues. I know the police have been quite proactive in relation to their response to kind of e-scooters and nuisance bikes and things like that, which have occurred. It's a really challenging one to deal with, because often people come and they're gone and they've sped off. There's often lack of descriptions or anything like that. Sometimes it's around where we can work with, usually the county in relation to any improvements which they can make to slow people down in terms of the path network, if that's an option. Sometimes not, and obviously there's lots of other considerations which need to be made in relation to that. But yeah, I think it might be worth, I don't know if Hayley, it's worth kind of talking about the work which the police have carried out in relation to sort of tackling some of the e-scooters and nuisance bikes and things like that, because I think there's been some really kind of proactive work done in that respect.
There was just one other question quickly, in relation to bikes again, and it's prevention of accidents, especially as we go into these dark days, lights, high vis, even during the day it can be quite dark, especially some of the roads that they've got a lot of trees, you can't see. Sometimes it's young people, sometimes it can be an older person that you come suddenly upon them in the gloom. I just wondered if there was something that we could, because you're already working with people with their bikes, with their locks, etc. Maybe that would be an extra thing to do, or whether you're already active doing that.
I can probably pick up that point as well. So there was recently another collaborative event which took place in relation to bike safety and security, where in the town centre, where locks and lights and things like that and bike marking took place and was given out. One of the next campaigns over the autumn period and going into that winter with them darker nights, the CSPOs are going to be doing some specific and dedicated work in relation to an autumn nights campaign. So that is, as the nights get darker, we know that the feeling of safety decreases during the darker hours. So how we can help support people in terms of feeling more visible and things like that. We have been actually actively, in some areas where there's been specific need, giving out some slap wraps and bike lights and things like that. As part of the campaign as well, particularly to young people and where they're noticed without lights and things like that, in an effort to keep people safer. But yeah, that's probably it. And then probably Hayley can pick up on the second point, the original point around footpaths and some of the bike and e-scooter work.
I just so happen to have some stats. No, so that issue for us, it comes up a lot. Obviously, we can't be everywhere all of the time, which tends to be a problem when it comes to sort of e-bikes and cycles. And some of the things you mentioned around with the bikes, not e-bikes, but normal bikes, it's difficult. It's quite difficult to enforce that stuff as well. So you can only actually offer people advice in terms of actually being visible and the kind of lighting element. My team have done some quite a lot of work in relation to e-bikes though. So we had Operation Volcanic, and it was particularly good success. So in that time they seized 21 e-scooters, and in that time they searched a number of people as well. So 6 people were searched. There were lots of warning letters that have gone out, have been issued, and when they did that operation, they were also able to deal with some of the owners' drivers in relation to driving without due care and attention, using a mobile phone while they're driving, and that was actually a new driver, so they'll probably have their licence revoked, and contravening red lights as well. So those are all the sort of things that we can do in relation to e-bikes, but obviously they will be targeted operations as and when we are able to get out and do those. But when we can do it, we do take really good action in relation to that as well. So but obviously it is a case of some of the time with the e-bikes, it's a case of actually catching them doing it. You have to be present at the time to actually have to be able to catch them when they're actually in the act. But there's been some really good work around that as well, so it was really positive.
Oh man, we've got 3 people down left. John, Stacey and Joe to do their seconds.
Right, thank you. This is for Hayley. So I attended last month a parish council meeting in my ward at Newtown, and we had a young police community support officer who gave us the report. It was very interesting. But I think the thing that concerned me was just how many vacancies there are in that part of the county. I think I may be wrong, but I think he said there are 6 vacancies out of a strength of 8. So it'd be quite useful to know if we even if we haven't got the data tonight, it'd be useful to have the data of where things are, because it is clearly a retention issue and also a recruitment issue, and I understand that. So if that information could be made available, it'd be useful. And then, strangely enough, on Newtown again, there is a question about speeding vehicles. Hayley, you may know about this, but it's been long running in that community with Burclair that there's something called the Newtown Straight, and it's the borough's equivalent of the Isle of Man TT circuit, and they're a community that's feeling that they're not being taken notice of by the police and Hampshire County Council. The MP, Kit Malthouse, has been involved, and they've had to go to use freedom of information to get detailed stats on the average speeds. It's supposed to be 50 miles an hour, but it is a racing circuit, and it seems to be that things are not. It's not being given sufficient seriousness because nobody's yet been killed. But I just wonder if I could ask you as a Chief Constable to sort of perhaps, if I write to you, just if you could take a look at this, because it is something that a lot of my residents have for a long time felt some action is required.
I'm definitely not the Chief Constable. Crikey.
Next week.
Yeah, no, don't think that's ever going to happen. So in relation,
Perhaps not yet.
Yeah, I don't think I've got enough time left for that one. So in relation to speeding, absolutely you can. I think what's important is that we obviously get told about it, that's a concern in different communities. But what's happened recently? So since I've been in Basingstoke, I've had kind of various concerns like that from different areas within the district, and subsequently what's happened is, so we've also got our road policing unit, and that's kind of their area, and what's happened now is actually they're looking at sort of speeding within rural communities specifically as well, and every time I get a report from a member of the public in relation to the speeding concerns, I'm actually forwarding that on to the roads policing team, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to actually collate those kind of locations now so that they can actually do some dedicated operations in the areas. So yeah, by all means send it over, because obviously if I don't know about it, I can't do anything about it. But it is actually something that's been taken on by the Chief Inspector for the roads policing team specifically, and every time I get anything like that, I'll send it over so that they can actually see which areas they need to be targeting. Okay. I'm going to keep mine on because I think they're all coming soon, aren't they? Or have I got to turn it off for someone else to spit up?
Stacey.
Thank you. And thank you as well for your part of this. There's some really, really good stuff in here, particularly as regards the ASB numbers. It's lovely news to hear. I had a couple of curiosities. The 14% drop or solve rate, sorry, that you mentioned, that's lovely to hear as well. I wondered what, in this context, the definition of solve is. Is that charge or conviction? So that's one point. And the other thing was, we've mentioned the recruitment challenges a couple of times tonight, and I wondered if, and this might be something you have no data on, but a general vibe, and it might be, again, a later question rather than tonight, whether it's people coming forward and approaching the constabulary issue or being interested in it, or are there elements that can be looked at potentially, because you've got very, very stringent recruitment criteria, as you should. Is there things that we could or should be looking at from a skills gap kind of perspective in terms of education or suitability, or any of that sort of thing?
What was the first bit on again? Sorry.
40%.
Oh yeah. So solve crime from our perspective is in relation to sort of a positive outcome. So that can be an out of court disposal, it can be a charge and summons, and that is what we look at in relation to that. In relation to the recruitment question, so is that are you kind of asking, is there anything that you can support in relation to the skills? Was it in relation to recruiting police officers? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm interested in where some of the challenges specifically might lie. If it is just in terms of people wanting and approaching you and needing the knowledge, or is it the people coming forward don't necessarily have the wherewithal, and are there things that, and when I say we, probably some of the officer team are looking at me going, oh dear God, don't do that. But it might not be within our remit to do that, but I don't know. You never know where these things might end up leading you if you ask the question.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest problems we have in Hampshire is a lot of people tends to be more sort of southern and eastern. So that is the actual geography can be a problem. So what we would want to try and do is sort of encourage people from a northern Hampshire perspective. I think for me as well, obviously, just generally, we would want to encourage people from lots of diverse communities as well, in terms of recruitment, so that we've got a really good widespread amount of officers. And I think it's just about actually people want to come into the police, but obviously we have a very stringent vetting process, so they don't always get through that process. But we also, it's just more the sort of the locational stuff. So we do have a lot more people who are kind of applying that live further down south and in the east. And when you have an officer that joins the police service initially, obviously can potentially, they're obviously on their baseline wage as well. So travelling and asking them to travel distances is and we have policies as well that we try to avoid having to ask them to travel too far, as well. So it's more around that kind of locational thing, I think, than anything else. So and just trying to make joining the police as positive as possible. But again, that comes down to, that's some of our that's about engaging with the communities as well, so they can actually have that positive work with the police as well. But it is probably more, the biggest challenge is probably more the locational element of it, I would say.
I think I've got Joe next.
Thank you,
John.
I did allude to the fact that I wanted to ask you a question about speed watch. Obviously, speeding in my area is particularly problematic. Every week I practically get somebody complain about people speeding through Tadley and Rat Run from AWE, and our road is so bad I can understand why people avoid the A340. But it is quite difficult to tell people what to do. We've tried to encourage people to join Speedwatch in Tadley, but we can't get any volunteers. But however, I do cover Pamber as well. And Pamber Parish Council have a very successful Speedwatch group. But I went to the parish meeting on Monday, and they have got some concerns because they have been verbally abused by some people doing their job, and so there's a bit of reluctance, and maybe there may be some people who leave. So we did have a discussion about the potential of getting some body-worn cameras, but we didn't know whether that was going to be legal for them to use it. So I did say today I would ask the question, and if the answer is yes, that would be supported, maybe my councillor grant can help pay for them, because I do have a certain amount to help. I did buy them some decent cameras. But obviously, if people are concerned, I don't want to stop them doing it, because at least on the outskirts of Tadley and some of the common roads, people get caught speeding, and I mean speeding. I'm talking about 120 miles an hour on a motorbike coming out of Tadley. That's the sort of speeding that we're talking about, and that's from the Speedwatch information cameras. So I'm not making this up. This is what happens. So it would be useful to be able to feedback. So that's the first question, is if they have the body-worn cameras, whether that's an issue. And my other question is, there's been lots of mention about events and doing things, and I keep hearing the word Basingstoke, but I don't hear much about the Dean part. Now remember, I represent an area which is the second largest town in the area. Whitchurch obviously comes up out behind. How many events are you doing out in the non-Basingstoke town centre events? Last year we had a review, and the then inspector came. I did say that the town council would be happy to have a meeting if we wanted a public engagement meeting or something in the town council office. That never got taken off. We do get a visit from the policeman every now and then, come and give us a report, but that doesn't involve the general public. So it would be useful to know if there was any possibility of having some of these events. I know in the past we've had cycle marking, with the water, whatever, it's something water, and now having the same issue, forgetting the word, magic water. You can mark your bike. Obviously talking about having lights on at this time of year is important, but are there any planned to be other than in Basingstoke Centre? Thank you.
I forget what the question was at the beginning.
Body cameras.
Oh, body-worn cameras. I don't know that there would be any problem with it per se, I guess, but I might have to come back to you. I need to have a think about that one, because I mean, I suppose it's no different than someone filming something on their phone, really, is it? I don't think. I might have to come back to you. I don't want to say yes or no on that one, just in case, because from a personal safety perspective, and sort of, I don't think there's any data protection stuff really necessarily, because it is in the public domain. Can I come back to you on that one? Because I can't think of, I don't want to commit myself to something that I don't know the answer to at the moment.
No, that's fine. Obviously the Speedwatch team work with the police, but obviously this came up at the meeting and nobody's asked anything. So I said I was coming to this evening, just thought it was an opportunity to ask a question. I'm very keen that we encourage volunteers to do Speedwatch, which does help, obviously, in rural areas where people are speeding, because the threat of being caught is something, and that's why I got them the special cameras. So they didn't, the one they had before could only see people coming towards them. I bought a couple of cameras for them that they can turn it round and get people going away. Somebody drove past them and as soon as saw them, reduced the speed down to the speed limit, went past them, waved them, and as soon as they went past, they went, put their foot down and went, and they got a notification because they broke the speed limit, and they thought they were being really clever. So the camera worked, and that was good.
Yeah, I'll come back to you on that, because I'm not 100% sure on that one at the moment. And in relation to the event, so forgive me, I just call it Basingstoke, but in my mind that covers the whole of the district. So that would cover, and certainly the Tadley team do a lot of operations. They do a lot of targeting kind of rural crime, and they have quite a lot of dedicated. There's been a lot of dedicated sort of engagement with some of the communities recently as well, with some concerns that were sort of one of the a specific area. But when I talk about the work that we do, I'm referring to the whole district. In terms of planned activities, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the teams, that would be down to my sort of their local plans around that. But from my perspective, I'm talking about all of it.
Could I just follow up on that? It's always useful to know who to speak to at the local police station, and your staff changeover is quite rigorous and happens quite a lot. So I just about get the name of somebody to contact and then they've disappeared. It would be useful for borough councillors to be notified of who at least the sergeant is. One of your predecessors, Hannah, used to allow me to send her an email and she'd send it on. And I don't want to go to that level, but it would be useful to have the local sergeant to know who to go to if you've got particular issues. So it gets quite complicated when you email people and it bounces back and it says these people don't exist anymore, but it's quite difficult.
It is frustrating. Martin Evans is your skipper, is the sergeant, but it also that should be on our website as well. So if it isn't, or you look at it and you get told that's the incorrect information, then that's down to me to make sure that that's updated. So, your local bobbies, the sergeant and the inspector should all be accessible via our website.
Okay, folks, I'm just going to point out we're at 10 to 9. I know we don't normally, we seem to go from one extreme to the other with this meeting. So I've got just Jenny and John Mackay. I wasn't sure if John Isaac, you didn't put your hand up again, did you? No, good. So we'll do that, get that through quickly, and then I'll sum up and do what I've picked up, some ideas from things people have asked for, which I think could be some good recommendations to go forward. So Jenny, over to you.
Thank you. Quickies then. I would encourage you to keep on the e-scooter bit, because I realise, it must feel like a tiny weeny thing compared to other far more important things going on. But for our residents, they are a problem for all parts of our society, because on our roads we find them suddenly coming out of nowhere, crossing roundabouts, going the wrong way because it's the quickest way to get there, and dodging round us. Older people find they're on the pavements, and again, the older people are expected to get out of the way of the e-scooters, and so it's a problem until it's regulated really well, and you haven't got enough powers to do that. So, but anything you can do is greatly appreciated in the community. Two areas that we haven't talked too much about this evening, but are perennials. We have in the past had huge problems with car meets. And there's been a lot of work, particularly by our supermarkets, to put in APNR and barriers and all sorts of things. And certainly in my patch, I don't get the complaints that I was getting. So it would be really helpful to hear from you how it feels from your perspective on things like car meets, and also on our drugs problem, particularly in the town. I think we get more reporting about it than we have had in the past. So sometimes people perhaps have a perception that it might be getting worse. But it would be helpful, I think, from your perspective in the police to understand. I know you're doing a heck of a lot of work, because we see a lot of arrests. We see, I like your Basingstoke Cops posts, which tell us when people go to court and there are conviction things. That's really, really good to see. But from your perception, do you feel you're on top of it? Is it going well? Thank you.
I have to bring a pen and paper next time, so I actually write down the questions I've written on. First one, chromiums. So car meets. It isn't a concern for me at the moment. We are not seeing them happen, and I think that is as a result of a lot of the really good work that's probably happened before I even came to Basingstoke. So since I've been here, there's probably been one major chromium. Chromium is the hot name. And even when we've had information to suggest that it's going to happen, because of the work that happened with the businesses, and actually it is fairly hostile place for them to go to now, which is really, really good. I know that Luke Murphy is having, some kind of sort of car meet, antisocial behaviour, car related antisocial behaviour summit that he's putting together because that is something that comes up, I think, from different various different residents, and he's going to be looking at the speeding issue around the town centre as well. So he's focusing on that, and our Rose policing team are going to be going there, there as well. But from it's good, I would say, and actually we don't see them anywhere near as much as I think it was happening previously. The second thing, drugs, we're never getting rid of it. It's never going to go away. But actually, in Basingstoke, I have a priority crime team who work brilliantly in that area, and it is So the way I look at it, and how I would sort of risk assess the drug side of things, is I'll look at kind of the presence of county lines within the district, and actually we have very little footprint from a county line perspective, and that is where your the significant violence that you might associate with drug related harm would be coming from. So we actually have a very small footprint in relation to that at the moment, which is really, really good, especially from a locational perspective, because obviously we're not that far from London, train lines, etc. So that's really, it's really good. And I think the intelligence picture that we have locally and the officers who work locally, we're very, very quick to pick up on it. And I think, hopefully, you see, I take drug reporting as a positive. So if I see an increase in kind of drug possession offences or supply offences or the reporting element of it, I actually think that's positive, because that's actually, I look at it as a proactive element in policing. So when you're possibly seeing more reporting, that's good as far as I'm concerned. So so, and actually I think from my perspective, some people might think that what they are going to tell us isn't that important, but what it does is it can be the last piece of the puzzle, so that we can then actually go and get a warrant from a court, etc. So any kind of information around drug use, drug violence, that sort of thing is always going to be useful. I think what I have to caveat that with, though, is I do have to prioritise. So there might be something happening here, but there might be a lot more happening somewhere else, and I have to prioritise where I'll put my resources. But if people don't report it, I won't be able to. I can't make that prioritisation, so it's really important.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right, John McCarthy.
Yeah, just a comment that would have followed on from the earlier part of the conversation in terms of the police resourcing in North Hampshire. I just wanted to say I'm aware of the issue, and prior to this meeting, and I've made it my business to bring that to the attention of the Police and Crime Commissioner, and will continue to do so at every opportunity.
Thank you, John. Right, I will now so it does say, do you wish to make any comments? But I think comments and questions have all blurred into one, as often happens. So there were several things that came up. We talked about this, the idea about heat maps and data and where resources are being deployed. And I think the thing that really jumped out at me was asking about regular contact with the community team, Debbie and Daniel, and also having visits, possibly making sure there's regular visits, even if it's encouraging the CSPOs to do that. I already do meet mine, but we're a bit haphazard, but making sure that's kind of put into their role, I think, would be really helpful, so that then councillors can get that and it becomes a known thing that it's done. The other point, actually, I was picking up on something when Jo said, and she was talking about it's difficult to know, and about who to contact in the police. Now, we have our councillor webpage, which has useful numbers and information. I think we can get that checked to see if that information's on there, because that would be a really sensible place to put it, and make sure we've got the current one on there and any contact names.
Yeah, and certainly just on that, we were just looking actually when from what Hayley was saying, we can get the link. There is the link to the website, so we can add that on, and then you just literally click on the link, type in your area, and it will show you who is your local bobby, as they call them now.
And actually, following on from that, because I know there is a link through which is carefully hidden where we can report things in direct to the police, which is like a councillor form. And I think if we get that link onto our internal councillor webpage, that would also be useful. I've forgotten what it's called. Yeah, exactly. So I think that was it. So I think there is something around this, getting some sort of stats and data and understanding what's going on and things. But I think so there are two sorts of areas, but I think if we get the communication in place, I think that will probably help improve things a lot. But really appreciate all the work you guys do, and thank you so much for giving us so much information tonight and giving us your time. And that's really all I could say. So we can now just say, do we note the presentation on the work of the Safer Communities team, and obviously and the police? Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't know why I switched the mic off because he's gone to the next bit. So the next thing we're going to do is review of the work programme. Now I need to advise you that since the agenda was published, the work programme has been updated. Refer to update. So this is obviously notes to self. I was going to say, because when I did look at it in the pack, I thought, oh, hang on a minute, we'd had some chats. Our next meeting was scheduled for November, but because reports and things won't be ready and it didn't make sense for some of the things we were planning, we are going to reschedule it to February. So we're not cancelling a meeting. It is just going to be rescheduled so that we've actually got some of the work in there. And you'll notice one of the things was something I raised, which was the consideration about weed control in the borough, and this is considering it on that the actual form I put in covers. It's about how many weed sprays we do, the issues about the environmental impact of weed spraying, the effectiveness, other weed spraying solutions that may well have been investigated, and also Stacey's work programme item, which is about addressing graffiti on utility cabinets, which is just like a little sore that just won't go away.
Just clarify, are we still having the January meeting?
And we are still having it. And so in January we're covering funding for community and voluntary sectors. It's having a look at where the money went and how it was spent on particularly the three big grants and things that go out for that. And then in March we're looking at the waste strategy, and that's going to be an update on the project that was done for the new waste work and things, and also the anti-poverty strategy. So
replacing the wellbeing strategy, is it?
No.
Was it in the document?
We did have, yes. What's happened to the wellbeing strategy?
Early 26 in the
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if it's for the committee to decide what comes to what meeting, there's quite a lot that you've put forward now. So very happy to swap any of it around if you'd prefer to see the wellbeing update.
Could we get the wellbeing in January?
Yeah.
The date in February. TBC.
It's this one.
It is in here, and I am going to say it's the 12th of February, apparently.
It's a Thursday.
Oh, it's a Thursday. Is that agreed? Is 12th of February okay for people? When you check your diaries, I'm sure Ellie will do the honours with sorting out that. And so that's the date that's currently put in the diary for that.
Anything on the 19th of November?
And so you've now got the 19th of November free. It is a Thursday, apparently, yes. Instead of the 19th of November, yeah. If there is anything else that people want to do, these are quite full agendas now, and obviously, because we do go into depth on these things, but if there's anything that people think is like short things, one thing I am conscious of that was raised, I believe, by Jenny, is we haven't had the feedback on our task and finish groups, which I think I'm seeing Fiona scribbling hastily. Oh, yes. They were. There was the sports one we did, and I can't remember if did we give feedback on the other one? No, so I think we've got the sports one, and the other one was the LRNA. Basically, they were both just sort of more in-depth briefings for councillors who sit on the committee and anybody else that wanted to come along just to discuss it, but we'll give a very brief update on it.
I believe that there was a possibility of us having a sort of councillor briefing on some things instead of it coming to committee. That's on the sports strategy, because obviously it affects not just people on this committee, it affects the whole council. And that seems to have disappeared into the long grass somewhere.
Jo, would you mind dropping myself and Ellie an email on that? Thank you. Okay, so let me just double check we've got that. So we've talked about the work programme updated. We've 12th of February. Are you happy to carry out the work programme sessions? Just said that we talked about. And Fiona, oh yes, it's actually it was item 4. So it's on it. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm sorry it's. I think hopefully you got a lot out of that tonight, but obviously it is now nearly 9:05. But see you tomorrow night. Yeah.